Welcome, everyone. We are so glad to see you here today and excited to get started. Welcome to the Community Engagement Institute's Fall 2023 Rising to the Challenge workshop series. If we haven't met before, my name is Carrie McMahon, and I work in the organizational development team at the Institute. If you're interested in learning more about CEI and our work, you can, of course, browse our website, and we invite you to reach out and meet us. And give me just a minute, and I'll drop that link to our website in the chat. I'm joined today by Percy Turner, one of our CEI staff, who will be leading us on our fourth workshop of this series today. Percy will be talking to us about moving from criticism to feedback. This is a 5-part workshop series as a whole focused on, ways we can improve our communication and be better prepared to navigate challenges with resilience and intention. If you have technical issues during the meeting, feel free to message me in the chat and I will help you to the best I can. We have an hour together today, so I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to our presenter to lead us through the workshop. Percy, whenever you're ready.
Hello, thank you very much, Carrie. I'm Percy Turner, and basically I'm going to be doing everything I can to help you move successfully from criticism to feedback. So there will be a lot of different things. I've seen a couple people here that have been a few of my trainings before, so hello, welcome. I feel so incredibly happy to see folks that we've talked before. If you don't know who I am, what have you been doing? I do everything I can to train and give professional development trainings for the Community Engagement Institute. Again, it's already been kind of talked about how you can get in touch with us if you like this content, or we have a plethora of other trainings that are available. So this one specifically is about moving from criticism to feedback. So what does that mean? We are trying to get the negativity of criticism away from the professional environment. And we're going to do that in a variety of ways. First, we're going to frame the necessity of professional communication. It is imperative that as a professional, you have a communication plan, that you are intentional with your words. And the more professional that you are, the more responsibility you have of what comes out of your face. We're going to discuss framing criticism as a motivation for improvement. We are also going to discuss approaches and preferences when it comes to communication. And then I'm going to be talking a little bit about an appreciative framework. We're going to be talking about discovering what's going well and really sinking our teeth into that, right? What we find with criticism is we tend to focus on things that aren't going well and then trying to either assign blame or to erase those things, when we could also be focusing on what's going right and really digging into what's going well and making more of that. And oftentimes, when we focus on what's going well, we find more motivation, we find easier communication, we find overall better meetings, and we find more uses for the talents that people have, because it's much easier to do something you're comfortable with than to learn something or erase something you're not comfortable with. Right. So that's what we're going to be kind of talking about throughout our time today. I have an hour. I talk a lot. I'm already apologizing. So here is our matrix. And we'll talk about this. What we're going to try and do is move from the left to the right. Right. So an example here, we'll go from the top left here. We're talking about criticism. That criticism is our red pen. If anybody's been in school in the last 500 years, you know about the red pen, right? This is wrong. And when I was in school 100 years ago, that's all you saw on your paper, right? If you were writing an essay, if you were doing any sort of thing that you turned into another person, you would see the red pen on your screen, or you would see the red pen, and the red pen would tell you everything that was going wrong, everything that you need to correct. Uh, so that's all it was. The desired result for criticism often is that somebody fixes things on their own, right? That's what, when people are criticizing, they are thinking, I'm telling you what's wrong. You can figure out how it's wrong. You can figure out why it's wrong, and you can fix it on your own, right? The actual effect fairly often is that people feel rejected and they have stress when they're moving forward. So instead of this is what's wrong, the actual effect is people feel like I am wrong. I did something wrong and I feel bad about it. I have no tools by which to correct myself. The only thing I'm walking away from is knowing that this is wrong, knowing that something I've done, put time into, put effort into, is wrong or bad, right? If we look at constructive criticism, we can say, this is wrong. Here's my justification as to why. And then you can figure out from my justification how to improve. The desired result here is people learn from me, they learn from my justification, and they fix it based on what they've learned from me. The actual effect here is that people focus on justification and they either argue it or they try to incorporate it moving forward, but they can still feel rejected. And this is about them focusing on you and your justification rather than them doing some of their own work and understanding things and learning things based on themselves. Whereas feedback is, here's what's right. Here's what's right with what you did. Here's what's good about this situation. And here's what else we need to address. The person understands that they have work that is good and they can use that as a basis to improve on the things that we need to address. And the intended result is that they understand how to improve their work and they improve their work. The person is validated. That's the actual effect, hopefully. And then with the what's good, they can use those as tools to move forward into further success. So that is a very, very basic breakdown of what direction we're trying to go from. We're trying to get away from this is wrong and get into here's what's right, and then here's what else. Okay. So, like I said, we're going from here's what I don't want, centering efforts on what's going wrong or as a negative. It often fails to open the pathway to success. Some simple misconceptions here. A lot of people assume the opposite, right? So if I tell you that I hate wordy emails, then just do the opposite of that. You give me what I want. I hate wordy emails, so just give me 3 words. Well, if those 3 words don't give me a message or don't explain it ends up being convoluted and it's not always true. And what we're doing here by telling somebody what we don't want and not giving them any key to success is it puts a responsibility for more blind effort, right? I don't like this, try again. How many of us have been in that situation? We haven't been told what to try differently. We haven't been told what to change. Just been told, this isn't it, go do it again, figure something else out. That this is not in any way, shape, or form helpful, right? Uh, the another great misconception. I don't know what I want, but I'll know it when I see it, right? I'm not sure exactly what this is supposed to look like. It's just not supposed to look like this. So this undermines collaboration, and what we can do, and the thing that I'll talk about, because I'm sure at some point you're going to be like, Percy, okay, so what do I do? You're literally having this training talking about stopping talking about what's wrong, and all you've been doing is talking about what I'm doing. You're right. We're going to talk about here in a little bit how we can use what we don't want as a roadmap to what we actually want. But we have to be intentional about kind of dissecting things. And that puts a little bit of the onus on the person saying, I don't want it, to discover what about it do they not like? What's going on there? And if they can figure that out, then we can talk about what's going well. And then we can start to kind of collaborate together and figure that out. One of the things that I've heard a whole bunch of times is, I'm not here to hold your hand. I don't like it. I'm not going to tell you anything more because I'm not going to coddle you, right? The opposite of criticism is coddling, which I don't particularly subscribe to this belief. And if it were up to me, I don't think anybody should. It supports a siloing of responsibilities. You do, and I approve. You make and I dissect. If we work this together, then both of our jobs are easier. If I can give you some feedback into what's going well and how this is going to work, then when I dissect it, I'm already dissecting it from a space of we've worked on this together. And so when we correct it, we're going to correct it together. And so that's what we're kind of moving away from. This is really, really well exemplified by something I like to frame as the dinner conversation, right? I love my wife to death, and we have this conversation at least once a week. What do you want to have for dinner? Whatever. I don't care. I don't care what we have. You don't care what we have? You're sure you don't care what we have? Yeah, I'm positive. Doesn't matter to me. I have zero preference. Okay, cool. Let's have pizza. Nah, I don't want pizza. Okay. Let's have wings. Nah, well, I don't want wings. Okay. So what do you want? Because you've just told me twice that you don't want something right after you told me you don't have a preference of what you want. So what do you want? I don't know what I want. You just pick something, right? This concept of I don't know what I want. It's up to you to figure out what I want. This is like, I preface this by saying I love my wife because this is one of the things that I have to say I love you after we have this conversation, right? Because I start like steam comes out of my ears. Are you sure you don't care? That's why I always start with that. Are you positive you don't have any sort of right? So this is kind of the pawing around in the dark that oftentimes criticism gets you, right? The only information that you have is the person doesn't like it, and they don't have any further information to give you, right? Carrie says it perfectly. I don't know what I do want. I do know what I don't want. This is like, help me, right? So this is what we're going to try and figure out. So let's be clear. Feedback isn't about never saying anything critical, right? There can still be some, here's what I don't want, but we're always going to lead with, here's what's good. Here's what's working. Here's what I do want about this. So we'll talk about a couple of these, right? Um, Function of feedback is appreciative. It's building on what's right instead of obliterating what's wrong. Building on what's right empowers the person and communicates strength first. So I'm going to give you kind of some examples here. One example, this is criticism. You spent too much time talking and not enough time on the material. You need to focus on getting through the material in the time allotted, right? The next one, you didn't get through all the material. Keep an eye on the clock. Work on transitioning between talking to the audience and your training points. This is more of that constructive criticism bit, right? The next one, you're able to connect with the audience immediately and you can tell people are engaged and attentive when you speak. Trust that connection. Move through your material with confidence. We won't run into time boundaries like we did today if you do this. So that last one is, here's the good. Here's some great things that you were able to do. You were able to do X, Y, and Z. And then here's the other bits. Trust the fact that you're able to communicate, that you're able to connect with your audience. And then when you connect with your audience, start moving through your material, right? If you do that, then we're not going to run into as many time boundaries. This gives somebody a direct link into not only what they're doing well, but then how to leverage what they're doing well into the other stuff. So, the social professional, what we're talking about here is balancing professional success. We're balancing skill and the social element, right? It's great to be good at what you do. And I trust that everybody in this room, everybody attending this meeting is good at what you do. And that's fantastic. And also, hate to say it, it might not be enough. You also need to have some element of understanding how people feel working with you. Anybody here ever work with somebody who's amazing at their job and terrible at everything else? Somebody that you kind of have to babysit that's like, okay, well, if you're doing like, I wish I could just put you in a vacuum and have you crank out work, because the second you have to talk to people, the second you have to give feedback on something, the second we talk about anything other than the work that you're doing, oh, I could strangle you, right? But that's that social element, because we are social creatures. Carrie is nodding because she agrees with me, not because I'm the person that she wants to. All right. So either way, what's important to note, don't look at me like
Absolutely. Absolutely.
that. So as team members, managers, our aim is to bring this into balance. We want people who are skilled, but we also want people who are able to promote togetherness when it comes to work, right? We want you to be able, and we also have, I know some people who are fantastic human beings. I love them. They're great. And they're terrible at what they do, right? But they have a great word for people. They're great at connecting with folks. Fantastic. And we need to up their skill. As a manager or a team leader or even a team member, being able to kind of balance these two things is the key to success, right? So feedback can help people who need skill development improve and feel motivated to do so. Feedback can also help people who need that social development, kind of give milestones and a way to reach them. This was A1 work. And the only thing that some people saw was how you delivered it. Everything you said was right. And the way that you connected with people, it left them feeling offended. It left them feeling unappreciated. It left them feeling you were correct. And that's not all there is to this particular thing, right? So let's take a moment. We have plenty of time. So I want to take about 3 minutes, maybe even four. I feel generous. 4 minutes. And let's think about a supervisor, a mentor, or a team member who's positively impacted your professional life. Now, you can share it if you'd like. I'd love for you to hop in chat and just kind of talk about how you learn from people and whether this was something that can be replicated. Um, but I really want you to take a minute and I want you to describe just a little bit how somebody who's positively affected your professional life, how you were able to learn from them, and if this is something that you could pass on. Feel free to use the chat and share. I'm going to start our timer at 4 minutes.
Seeing a couple of things come through in chat. I saw other people were positively influenced by them. Supervisors who validate and value feedback from their staff when they are great at their work but not perfect. Some appreciation for making your own mistakes. Things are coming in quickly now. That's wonderful. My supervisor who asks questions and helps me to helps get me to a place of understanding. Former coworkers shared advice. Leadership is not showing others how great you are, it's showing others how great they are. I've had great team members and supervisors that have made me feel seen, feel heard.
Love it.
It's hard to think of a positive impact. I definitely remember the negative and what I don't want to do. They showed a sincere interest in my well-being. It
Love
came
that.
through in how they worked with me. Giving grace, appreciate inquiry, learning about my struggle. Bringing a sense of humor to the workplace, willingness to coach and teach. Lots of themes around the humanness of people and remembering that staff are people and not just your staff.
Love it. Yeah, people aren't functions. And I think it's a really, really important distinction to make. And also, I want to talk a little bit about what Jamie, I think it was Jamie who said, Jamie said, yeah, it's hard to think of a positive impact. I totally get that. And I think that it's because criticism kind of permeates the work culture right now. And it's much more, it sinks in much more when we give somebody a criticism or we tell somebody something negative or we treat somebody badly. That could affect them and impact them for years to come. I can tell you, I was part of a team, not CEI, years ago, where I was told during one of my evaluations, "Hey man, you're bad at your job. You're just bad." And I was like, "Are you gonna fire me?" And they were like, "No." And I was like, "Then why would you tell, like, what's the point of telling me? Are you gonna help me get better? Like what's," and they were like, "This is what I'm talking about." And I was like, "Me asking you for direction? Like this is bad." I don't understand. And so I used to have these arguments with an old supervisor of mine that was like, "You're a supervisor, help direct me. If you don't like something I'm doing, you don't just get to say I don't like it and walk away. Like do some supervising." Um, and that was, you know, not received well. uh, but having that said, I will never forget every time I go into a uh, a supervision or a meeting with somebody now, I always say, "Are you okay? Am I okay? Are we okay?" That came from this very negative impact that I had with these people, and that's a scar that kind of can threaten to ruin relationships that are not the relationship that I have with this person. Carrie, for example, is a fantastic individual, and I've sat down on one-on-ones with Carrie, and there's a lot of times where I have to, in my brain, remind myself this isn't that person. If Carrie has a problem with something that I do or say, then Carrie's going to let me know that, and we're going to be able to talk through it. And so there's more here. Christine says I have had two excellent supervisors that were always patient, supportive, and kind. Jana says, a former supervisor showed appreciation for my questions. She was not threatened by them, but encouraged me to ask them. Although our roles have changed, we still work very closely. I try to replicate this with my staff. I love the concept that just like we just finished talking about how negativity can sit with you, positivity can help you and make you want to replicate it, right? I don't want to be in a room full of people who know what not to do. I want people who know what to do, right? And who want to push that positivity forward. Stacy says an area between micromanaging and disconnect, allow you to make decisions and trusting, but being available with guidance when needed. Love this. Michelle, my personality is to make sure to cover all bases with expectations. I've learned that in a lot of cases, less is more. Sometimes providing additional information makes things confusing. Love that. Kristen, the impact of a bad supervisor can permeate an individual's career and how they supervise. 100%. Terry, I have had really positive feedback, and it really helps when I remember that if there is, that I remember that if there's a downtime later. Positivity is a very powerful tool. Self talk, and I won't get into this as deep as I'd love to, but self-talk is a huge part of your professional identity. What you say to yourself and how you think of yourself it relates to your confidence. It relates to whether you are willing to speak up about something or not, whether you're willing to ask questions or not, whether you're willing to communicate understanding or not understanding, right? We have conversations in our brain constantly about who we are, who other people think we are, and who we ought to be. And when negativity permeates that space, when criticism is the only thing that we're telling ourselves, and that's because of enduring that kind of criticisms throughout our professional world, it can change and it can impact who we think we ought to be in our offices. And it impairs our efficiency and it impairs our willingness to work with other people, right? Which is why we want to move away from this particular type of communication style to a communication style that's more supportive, that's more about what works first, so on and so forth. Does all that make sense? Do you have any questions, contentions, or concerns with what I've said so far? You toss me an emoji in the chat or on your picture if you're still alive and with us today. Any emoji is fine by me. A heart, a smiley face, something weird, whatever you want. I see a party hat, love it. Yeah, smiles, heart faces, love you too, Christine. Let's go. I appreciate you. The fire, yes, yes, so good. Thank you so much. Okay, we're gonna keep putting them in there. I love it. I constantly need to be reinforced. I told you I had a bad supervisor once. Okay, so let's talk about it from peer to peer. In peer to peer benefit, criticism, constructive or otherwise, can be damaging to relationships and it can build resentment. A team that is unable to communicate is often unable to work to its potential. How many times have you thought, you and I are on the same level? You don't need to be telling me about how to do my job, right? Um, but focusing on appreciative feedback is a quick and easy way to connect with others around what's going well. I love working for the team that I'm on because I constantly learn from these people. And when I lead with appreciation, I lead with what I can learn and what I enjoy. I love my team right now because they are very, very good at leading with what we appreciate. And we've established this as our base communication culture. So you'll hear very often, even in really stressful situations, we'll start with, here's what I love. I love that we did this. I love that we're moving in this direction. I love that you took this stand. I don't necessarily agree with it, but here's what I love about it. Here's what I want to hear more of in this regard, right? And it takes some of the nervousness away from speaking out. It takes some of the nervousness away from being present in the moment. I love these things, right? Uh, Liz, have yourself a fantastic afternoon. So, great teams are often able to complement each other based on an intimate understanding of strengths and needs. Knowing what we're good at allows us to be intentional when we're working together. And I wish that we lived in a world where we all knew exactly what we were good at without input, right? I wish that we lived in that. I want to live in that world. However, sometimes I need a little reassurance. And sometimes it's the people that I'm working with that can help me recognize, Percy, you're really, really good front of the room. But when it comes to afterwards, after this meeting, when like we have to document and like get the bills paid, you are absolutely miserable at this. And I'm like, you're absolutely right. I'm terrible at like saving receipts and do like accounting, budgeting. I would give all my stuff away for free. I don't want to do any of that. I don't know what one plus one is. Like that's not my forte. I don't know anything about that. Right. So but leading with, here's what you're great at, and let's do more of that. So when you're in the front of the room and you're leading and you're presenting, what about this? What about those skills can we use to augment some of the things that you're struggling with? Right? That's what a good team member is going to do. That's what a good team is going to be like. We don't need to all have the same skill set, but I need to know what my strengths are and what Carrie's strengths are so that we can support each other appropriately, right? The more that we focus on deficits, the more people tend to draw in on themselves and are hesitant to reach out. You ever been in a team meeting where the first person who talks is kind of the loser, right? Supervisor asks you if anybody has questions, everybody just kind of stares at each other, but then we spend 20 minutes after the meeting is over talking about all the questions we could have had. Just saying. All right, maybe I'm wrong. Power dynamics and feedback. Anything other than a peer-to-peer discussion has to take power dynamics into account. There is a big difference between someone you're working with on your team saying, hey, I love this and here's what you need to work on, and your supervisor saying, here's what you need to work. Hey, I love this, here's what you need to work on, right? So as a manager, a supervisor, or other mid to high level staff, motivating and developing staff is paramount to creating a high performing team. It is much more important that you lead this kind of example. If you recognize, when we were talking in our example before, I asked specifically a supervisor, mentor, or team member. Now, if we go back through, if you go back through all of the discussions, the majority of them are about supervisors. the majority of them, the majority of what we remember are power dynamic infused, right? So I absolutely positively believe that we put more weight on power dynamics than we do on messaging. If I have 12 team members and 12 of my team members say, you are fantastic at public speaking, and I have a meeting with my supervisor who says, you are the worst public speaker I have ever met, guess which one I'm going to take to heart, right? Um, so Aaron says something really interesting here. I feel like this is the opposite of what my HR department recommended I do when having conversations with employees who have opportunities for improvement. I've been advised to stick to the issue that needs improvement instead of muddying the water with what the person does well, because it detracts from the issue at hand. I much prefer your way of giving feedback to be clear. It is frustrating that the advice I have been giving is conflicting. How different could my interactions have been if I had been given this advice? Faye says, I don't know if it's me or not, but the slides don't seem to be advancing. Hold on. Can you, Faye, we are currently in power dynamics and feedback. Are you with us? Oh, you see this now.
Appreciate
Okay.
this
Phew.
helpful. They are advancing for me, so it might be a issue for that user.
Okay. Spent a lot of time earlier this year researching companies and presenters that can come do trainings with our staff to do assessments and skills with our teams to better work together. They are way out of our budget as a small nonprofit. Do you have resources or exercises and trainings that we can do that are more affordable? I'm pretty affordable. Other than that, though, I would absolutely love if you. I believe that we have some emails. If you want to email us after this is over, I would love to kind of discuss that with you, and we can figure something out for you. I'd love that. So yeah, cultivating a space of open and honest communication can be supported by basically discussing and exalting feedback over criticism. We want to dispel the fear of doing wrong, right? And it's really interesting, Aaron, in your what you said in your comment, my favorite part of what you said is an opportunity to do something or to improve, right? Having conversations with employees who have opportunities for employment, opportunities for improvement is exactly that. That is a feedback kind of infused statement. There's an opportunity here for you to improve. Well, what are you going to improve on? You're going to improve on things that you're currently doing decently, right? Otherwise, what we're talking about is when we say you have opportunities to improve, we're saying we want to build on something you currently have instead of don't ever do this again, right? Those are two different conversations, in my opinion. If you want to improve on something, we need to highlight where we're going to start. Where's your building blocks? And then go from there. Now, there are some hard boundary situations that we might need to just lead with, right? Like stop setting fires in your office. Don't ever throw matches into the trash can again. Stop it. Right? That's wrong. You're doing something wrong. It's damaging to other people. It's damaging to yourself. I might not want to spend 5 minutes starting out with, you're a really great worker. You really care about other people, but you keep setting these pesky fires in the office. Please don't do that. Right? There are some elements here that we could that we could kind of pair out, but the majority of what we're trying to do is we want people to not be afraid to make mistakes. Mistakes are some of our most valuable elements in learning. Right? Okay, so Percy, you've talked for 40 minutes about this, and you haven't told me at all what I need to do. You're right. Here we go. The biggest thing that you can do is find the yes and the no. Right? We're not going to like everything. We're not going to coddle, right? But there are very few ideas or attempts that have nothing to say, that have no merit at all. So find some merit. Find the yes and the no. Find a little bit, right? And teasing out what's working helps create a template for success and supports learning from mistakes. So even if we're saying focus on what people need to improve, as Erin was saying before, her HR kind of gave her this directive to focus only on what people need to improve. Okay, if we were to take that particular thing, find the yes and the no. So what you need to improve is, let's say, your attendance. Let's just say, right? You are 5 minutes late every day. Uh, when you show up, you get right to work. You come in, you don't banter with people, you go right to your desk, you recognize you're late. That's a good thing. I like that. I like that sense of urgency. I recognize that you know that you're late. What's going on here? Right? How can we so even that little simple, there's a little bit of good in what's happening. Are you late? And is that wrong? Absolutely. But when you get here, you're here and you're present. That's a good thing, right? This is just a little bit of a yes that's in the know, right? Learn what you like. Learn your communication style. Learn what you find supportive, attractive, efficient, and necessary. Learn what communication works for you because there's a big difference between this is wrong and I don't like this. If I'm the type of person that values conciseness, what you've done might be 100% great for somebody who doesn't prefer conciseness, right? But this is what I prefer. So oftentimes what we do is we conflate those two things. I don't like and this is wrong are not the same thing, right? So learning about what you like, what you want, what communication works for you, especially if you're the person who's tasked with development. The more you know you, the easier it'll be to give feedback and find positives, right? There's because what we should all be able to do is divorce the idea of I don't like from this is wrong. So I don't like the wordiness of this email, but man, there's some amazing things in here, right? I just, when it comes to me, give me some bullets, I'm good. That's what I like. But how you've captured this, the emotion that you've put into that, the way that you broke down this or those things, fantastic. Love them. But if it were me, if you're sending this to me and me alone, I need 3 bullets and I need you to get out of there, right? Prioritize development over rightness. Communicating your knowledge is half the problem. Helping other people digest that knowledge is the other half, right? It's great to be right. Don't get me wrong. I love being right. It's one of my favorite things to do. And if somebody doesn't take to heart what I'm saying because the way that I've communicated it has actually hurt them or damaged our relationship, it doesn't matter. I can't hang my hat on being right, especially if I'm on a team and I'm developing staff. And just because I told somebody the right thing to do doesn't ensure that they do it, doesn't ensure that they adopt anything that I'm doing, right? So let's go back to our dinner conversation. How do we change this conversation? Okay, this is what it might look like if we're talking about feedback. What do you want to have for dinner? I don't know, whatever's fine. Okay, what about wings? Well, I do want something hot and I want something that I can eat with my hands. I don't want wings. Okay, well, now I have some more information. So, what are some things that are hot? So, we don't want deli, we don't want cold cuts, we don't want, old tuna sandwiches. Uh, okay, fine. That kind of cuts out a whole swath of things. Okay, what about pizza? Um, Not pizza. We had pizza last week. But I do want it to have meat, cheese, and toppings. I like that. I feel like, yeah, meat and cheese sounds good to me. Now, I have to I think it's like 3 or 4 times a day. I have to remind people that I am a vegan and I'm gluten free. So no animals were harmed in the making of this slide. I do not, I'm not good with pizza or anything like that. It's just an easy example to make. I haven't eaten pizza in almost 10 years now. What about tacos? So tacos, something hot that I can eat with my hands. It's not wings. It's something that has meat, cheese, and toppings. Hey, tacos sound great. Now we've arrived at something, but we've learned along the way. That's the point. Every no had a little bit of a yes in it. I don't want this. I do want that. I don't like this. I kind of like that. I kind of want to, yeah, I'm okay with that. Right. Even if you say, I don't know what I want for dinner, but I know I don't want to cook. Okay. That cuts out a whole lot of options. That saves us a whole lot of time because now we can think about restaurants, right? So that's the point. When we talk about applying this ideology, we're talking about checking for the yeses in the nos. Now, this is what I got for you. Do you have any questions or concerns or contentions with what I have said? We have about 19 minutes around, maybe. What are some questions? I want to make sure that I want to make sure that I've gotten everything in chat. So if you put something in chat, let me make sure that I have touched on it or addressed it. If you feel like something hasn't been addressed to your satisfaction, let's talk about that. But otherwise, this is what I got, friends. If you take
Percy, I
nothing,
don't think I've seen anything in chat that you haven't addressed.
fantastic. I love it. If you have any questions or concerns, or you want to dig a little deeper into this particular topic, I believe that Carrie has put our email addresses in a reply to Jamie. My email address is percy.turner@wichita.edu. And this is what I do. I do this all day, every day. So if you need somebody to come and yell at your staff or to talk very positively about them, so that they can figure out what they need to do more of, I'm totally with that. But you have about 20 minutes in your day. Now, I'm going to let you out early, but I'm going to do this with an agreement. For the next 10 minutes, you need to do something because you're billed for the rest of the hour, right? So technically, your boss thinks you're still in a training. So for the next 10 minutes, you need to do something that takes care of you. All right. Don't tell anybody that you left, but for 10 minutes, it's your time to do whatever for yourself. Then you can get back to work. All right. So thank you very much. Carrie, you were going to say something. I'm so sorry. Your boss is in a training too. Curse
I
it.
was before everybody hops off. First, thank you all so much for participating today and being a part of this conversation. And thank you, Percy, for another wonderful delivery and great insight into this topic area. We would love to hear your feedback about this training session. To do that, I put a link in the chat if you'd take a quick minute to let us know your thoughts. We are always looking for feedback and ways to improve, be more effective, engaging, or send kudos. We've also included a place in that evaluation for you to tell us your topics and trainings of interest, so things that you're interested in learning more about for future workshop series. In previous surveys, participants told us effective communication was an important topic, and that's how we got to the series that we have right now. So we really do want to hear from you and hear your feedback. And I hope you can join us next week. Our colleagues, Dr. Tara Gregory and Dr. Sarah Jolly, will be talking to us about gathering useful feedback to inform decision-making. So join us for the final of this 5-part series. Francis, I see in the chat you have a question. Go ahead if you want to put it in the chat. Percy got there first, but yes, we will stay on if you still have questions.
Yeah, sorry, I just unmuted myself because sometimes it's just easier for me just to say it than to, than to type it out. So thank you, Percy, for all this great information. I did this class today to learn more about and you probably said it, but I have somebody that I supervise that has the best of intentions. And they know their job inside and out, right? But when they meet with their staff, it comes across very criticizing. And so trying to work with that individual and trying to see how I can help them to coach them, to look at it in a different way. That's kind of what my struggle is right now, and didn't know, yeah, kind of, you know, I go to that last slide about when you talked about, second, how can I stop criticizing? It's not the rightness in doing it. Like, allow them to develop their own way, allow them to grow. Like, just because you do it a certain way doesn't mean that their way is incorrect. I mean, if they got all the pieces there, then what can you pull out? So I didn't know if you had any more insight about how to talk to that supervisor about that. I've got some ideas already, but just wanted your thoughts too.
Sure. So I'm going to try and be concise here, but the big thing, I think, finding the yes and the no. So if the only thing that a person walks away with from an interaction with you or with, you know, your target audience is that I'm doing something wrong, that I'm not doing it like you, then we have a problem, right? So when we're building people, when we're building things up, one of the big things that we want to do is start where people are. When you're an expert, one of the struggles that you have is that you have verifiable proof that what you do is right. And one of the things that people tend to lean on is that data. Like, I know that I'm doing things correctly. That doesn't mean that it's the only way, but it is the most consistent way because I've been doing it for X amount of years, right? One of the hardest people I've ever done a training for was teachers, because that's what teachers do all day long. And so teaching, like, helping teachers understand, hey, there's a different way to think about things, or hey, there is the most resistance because I've been doing this for this long. So trying to dig into what this person might be protecting themselves, right? Allowing people to discover things themselves isn't an admonition that what you're doing isn't the best way, right? And maybe having that kind of conversation, because they might be feeling like, hey, I'm the best at what I do. If I don't train people to do what I do, I'm not training them to be the best. And by my supervisor not supporting me in this regard, they are telling me that what I'm doing is not the best. And it's hard for people to let people grow organically and find their way to do the work. And I don't know who you're, you know, Francis, I'm not sure who or what kind of personality this other person has, but there may be something that they're protecting, that they feel like, if I don't train people a certain way, this is me saying something about the way that I do my work or the way that I understand my work. So maybe exploring some of that with them alongside of some of the stuff that we talked about in the training.
Yeah, your last comment. I have just actually been thinking about that recently. It kind of hit the nail on the head there too, as well. So, okay, thank you.
No problem. Any other questions or concerns? I think that they are talking about if we do have the ability to put up older trainings, we might put that somewhere on our YouTube or something like that. That is a possibility. But thank you all for being here. Have a good rest of your afternoon, and come on back and see us. Make sure you fill out that survey.
Yes, I will go ahead and put that in the chat one more time. And I am following up with our organizers to see where those recordings get posted. And I'll stay on for just another minute in case I am able to answer that question. And if I'm not, then we will hopefully be able to do some follow-up and let you know where to find those. Thank you all and have a great